When picturing an average music festival, a lot of things outside of the actual music may come to mind. Muddy fields, pure stench, and plenty of... Despite many of these things being kind of a net negative, festivals are often seen as a positive experience, an excuse for individuals bogged down by the responsibilities of modern life to let loose and do essentially whatever they want in a muddy field for a few days. If you were to dig deeper within your brain for festival-based knowledge, you may come across Woodstock, a festival that is seen as one of the most iconic for not only its insane performances, but its impact on culture as a whole. The thing is, the Woodstock you have in mind, the Woodstock full of flowers, hippies, and self-love, yeah, that happened in 1969. Woodstock would actually decide to hold a 30th anniversary festival to celebrate the flowering moment in 69. So what happens when instead of loving hippies, Woodstock is full of rabid 90s kids with a ravenous urge to cause destruction thanks to the instructions of Fred Durst? Well, that essentially highlights what would occur at Woodstock 1999, what is seen by many as the most disastrous festival of the time, an event that is more commonly referred to as hell than an actual festival. Before we can explore why Woodstock 1999 was so disastrous and violent, we first need to look into the defining year of 1969 and what made Woodstock so special in the first place. Spoiler alert, it definitely wasn't the organizational abilities of the hosts. Consistent protests from residents led to an extremely late venue change for the 69 Woodstock, resulting in unfinished stages and no ticket booths. This, combined with many of the festival attendees turning up early, led to unfinished staging areas and just basically a whole show, with the majority of attendees just entering without a ticket. The festival was so overpopulated that there was zero chance they had enough facilities for the amount of people, leading to issues with bad weather, food shortages, and proper sanitation. Despite this, the festival attendees remained remarkably peaceful, cementing Woodstock 1969 as a cornerstone in alternative culture, so much so that a 30th anniversary festival was inevitable. The organizers thought long and hard for the 30th anniversary. How are we going to replicate the peace and love felt at the original Woodstock 30 years after the hippie movement died out? Of course, let's just replicate all the worst, potentially dangerous flaws of Woodstock 1969, only this time have the festival lineup full of these motherfuckers. I'm sure nothing can go wrong. Yeah, obviously literally everything you can think of went wrong. Before we look into why the festival was such a disaster, let's explore some of the issues that plagued the festival, and trust me, there were many, and they get very stupid. Let's start with the many sanitary and health issues that were caused by the weather at the festival. During the event, temperatures reached heights of 37 degrees Celsius, which is very hot. This, combined with the sheer amount of attendees and staff, temporarily made the festival site the third most populated area within New York. They then turned off the water supply before the festival, urging attendees to bring their own water. Obviously, this motherfucker is barely able to read, resulting in many attendees having a severe lack of water. They attempted to reconcile this with sparsely placed water fountains, which immediately got vandalized, resulting in flooding. Well, that or the fountains became so disgustingly contaminated from the toilets that it caused rashes and gum infection just from contact in some cases. Festival vendors took advantage of this by charging $4 for a single bottle of water, leading to performer Kid Rock demanding audience members to pelt plastic water bottles at the stage to revolt. ICP would also take advantage of the overpriced goods at the festival by deciding to throw $100 bills into the audience just to watch the melee that ensued. So we have about 250,000 degenerates suffering from dehydration due to lack of water. How about we choose a festival site that has barely any shelter and primarily consists of tarmac? Then let's also force concert goers to walk 1.5 miles in between stages. This obviously led to thousands of cases of severe dehydration and heat stroke. So artists encouraging audience members to fight or pelt objects at each other wasn't the only type of fuckery that occurred during the performances. The festival was attended by primarily men, and not just any type of man, this type of man, meaning the degeneracy reached some pretty uncomfortable lengths. Sexism was pretty rife within the performances, even leading to some pretty nasty sexual. I don't see it as very respectful to go into too much detail on a topic like this on a comedy shit post channel, so I urge you to educate yourself on that if that's something you're interested in looking into. Let's just swiftly move on to the next thing. A truck would randomly drive through the stage area and crowd during Fatboy Slim's performance. I feel this just highlights how much of a show this festival was. The fact that a full-on truck was allowed anywhere near a stage area is insane to me. Another situation that is pretty funny, despite the fact that it did escalate much of the chaos, is that much of the volunteering security straight up just gave up and just walked into the large crowds, never to be seen again, leaving the police completely inept to deal with the large crowds. All this fuckery culminated in Sunday's headliner, Red Hot Chili Peppers. They decided to cover the Jimi Hendrix song Fire to pay homage to the iconic Woodstock 30 years beforehand. Unfortunately, what they didn't realize is they were playing the song Fire to a group of extremely thirsty, sunburnt and pissed off Limp Bizkit fans with room temperature IQ who seemed to take lyrics and songs more so as an order than just words over music. So they heard the word fire, and immediately all the anger from the lack of resources, extreme heat and overall atrocious festival experience led to fires being set at various places within the crowd area. So it started in the crowd with bonfires, then led to vehicles being flipped and set alight. This obviously led to a full-on riot full of disgruntled men with only nu metal, beer and on their mind. They of course were easily defeated by riot police because of course they were. Look at them. Despite this, the festival grounds were left looking like a bomb site. So what caused all this to happen? How the can a festival be so ridiculously over the top in terms of sheer amount of degeneracy? Well, there are a few things and more importantly people we can blame. Firstly, the festival was so disgustingly disorganized and poorly thought out that it was bound to lead to issues. The festival was so incredibly overcrowded due to the fact that wristbands were very easy to replicate, leading to many attendees just walking in for free. And although this explains portions of the issues, a very similar situation occurred at Woodstock 69, if not even worse, and that festival was commonly remembered extremely positively, as opposed to being seen as the death of live music. I think this has a lot to do with the culture at the time, and I'm pointing my finger at nu metal. Love it or hate it, it's hard to deny the genre appealed to all the wrong people at the time, and the fact that nu metal was the dominant alternative genre at the time explains a lot of the aggression. During 69's Woodstock, psychedelia was at its peak, a genre that encouraged peace, love, and taking so much acid you are physically unable to cause any issues. The music of the 90s encouraged more rebellion through the likes of bands like Rage Against the Machine, Limp Bizkit and Korn, resulting in the stoic crowds of 69 Woodstock morphing into an angry mob who are willing to immediately get naked, throw items and break shit if a strange looking man with dreadlocks tells them to on stage. I suppose you can also put some of the blame on the artist performing in some cases, specifically in the case of Limp Bizkit, who saw the rampage they were causing and actively continued to encourage it, and then just didn't seem to give a f afterwards. Obviously the original issues are all the fault of the organizers and the crowd in some cases, but I believe there has to be some artist responsibility, especially when your most popular song is called Break Stuff. What the f do you expect people to do? It was almost inevitable that the events of Woodstock 99 occurred in the way they did. A group of primarily angry men obsessed with counterculture were crowded into an extremely hot festival with no water or shade. They were then charged ridiculous prices in order to just be able to eat or stay hydrated, and continuously woke up to some of the most disgusting conditions on the sanitary side of things. It's happened time and time again. If you treat people like animals, they will act like animals, and this is made even worse if they are spurred on by some of the most white trash music in recent memory.